Most people destroy their own social power before they even start speaking. They do it with one small sentence that sounds polite, harmless, and friendly. A sentence everyone has been trained to use since childhood. A sentence that quietly kills attraction, weakens presence, and makes conversations forgettable before they even begin. How are you? 3 words that feel normal but secretly communicate something very different. They communicate autopilot. They communicate predictability. They communicate emotional distance. And the human brain reacts to that instantly. Not consciously, but emotionally. Because human beings are not moved by politeness. They are moved by presence. And presence is rare. Think about the last 10 times someone asked you how you were. You probably answered the same way every single time. I'm fine. I'm good. I'm okay. Those responses didn't come from your heart. They came from your social autopilot. A script your brain plays automatically to avoid effort, avoid vulnerability, and avoid emotional energy. And here is the truth most people never realize. When you start conversations with predictable words, people stop expecting anything meaningful from you. They subconsciously place you in the category of background noise. Not because you are boring. Not because you lack personality, but because your communication feels exactly like everyone else's. Human brains are wired for novelty, for curiosity, for emotional signals, for meaning. When none of those appear, attention disappears. This is why some people walk into a room and become magnetic without trying. It is not because they speak more. It is because their presence feels intentional. Their words feel chosen. Their silence feels comfortable. They do not speak to fill space. They speak to create connection. And connection is what people crave more than anything else. People are starving for real conversations while drowning in polite ones. We live in a world where everyone is constantly talking but very few people feel heard. Where everyone is connected but very few people feel understood. Where everyone is communicating but very few people feel seen. And the biggest illusion is that talking more creates connection. It doesn't. Intentional communication creates connection. When you ask someone how they are, you think you are opening a conversation. But psychologically, you are placing the emotional burden on them. You are handing them the responsibility to create meaning, direction, and energy. Most people do not want that responsibility in casual conversation. Their brain is conserving energy, protecting itself, avoiding effort. So they choose the safest response possible. I'm fine. Conversation closed. Opportunity gone. Connection never started. This happens thousands of times in a person's life without them ever noticing the pattern. Then they wonder why conversations feel shallow. Why connections feel weak. Why attraction fades quickly. Why people forget them easily. It is not because they lack value. It is because their communication lacks intention. Words are not just sounds. Words are signals. Every sentence you say tells people how to interact with you, how deeply to engage with you, and how much emotional investment they should give you. Predictable words create predictable reactions. Intentional words create emotional reactions. And emotional reactions create memorable people. This is where social power quietly begins. Not in what you say loudly, but in what you choose not to say automatically. Silence is uncomfortable for most people. That is why they rush to fill it with routine questions and safe statements. But confident people understand something different about silence. Silence creates space. Space creates curiosity. Curiosity creates attention. And attention is the doorway to connection. The moment you stop rushing to fill every interaction with automatic politeness, something surprising happens. People start leaning in. They start paying attention. They start wondering what you will say next. Because your presence no longer feels predictable. Predictability is comfortable, but it is not memorable. And being memorable is what creates influence, attraction, and respect. Imagine 2 people entering the same room. One person says hello to everyone and asks how they are. The room responds politely and forgets the interaction seconds later. The second person pauses, looks around, smiles slightly and says, "This room feels unusually quiet today." Suddenly people look up. Their brain wakes up. Their curiosity activates. What made them say that? What did they notice? What do they see that others don't? One sentence changed the emotional energy of the entire interaction. This is the difference between speaking to be polite and speaking to create presence. Most people spend their lives trying to be liked by everyone. They believe politeness equals connection, but politeness without emotional depth becomes invisible. Real connection begins when people feel something during an interaction. Curiosity, comfort, interest, surprise, recognition. Emotion is the glue of memory. Without emotion, conversations disappear. This is why you can forget hundreds of polite conversations but remember one deep conversation for years. Your goal is not to talk more. Your goal is to create emotional moments. When you stop asking automatic questions, you begin making observations. Observations show attention. Attention shows value. And value creates connection. You look like you just solved a difficult problem. That meeting felt longer than expected. This week feels unusually fast. Simple statements, but powerful signals. They tell the other person something important. You are present. You are observant. You are intentional. And the brain responds to that instantly. Because attention is rare. Everyone wants to feel seen, but very few people know how to show others that they see them. This is where emotional intelligence quietly separates people. Emotionally intelligent communicators understand that conversations are not about exchanging words. They are about exchanging emotional signals. Safety, interest, curiosity, respect. When those signals exist, people open up naturally. When they don't, conversations stay on the surface. And surface-level conversations never create deep connections. This is why some people say very little but have strong relationships everywhere they go. Their words carry emotional weight, not because they are perfect speakers, but because they are intentional communicators. Intentional communication is a form of self-respect. It shows you value your words enough to choose them carefully. It shows you value your presence enough to use it deliberately. When you respect your own communication, people begin to respect your presence. And respect is one of the strongest forms of attraction. People are drawn to those who do not chase attention but naturally command it. The shift begins the moment you stop speaking automatically. The moment you pause before words leave your mouth. The moment you ask yourself one question. Am I speaking to fill silence or to create connection? That single question can transform every interaction in your life. Because the quality of your conversations determines the quality of your relationships. And the quality of your relationships determines the quality of your life. Most people try to change their lives by changing big things. Careers, cities, relationships. But transformation often begins with small shifts repeated consistently, like changing the way you start conversations, like replacing automatic questions with intentional observations, like allowing silence to exist without rushing to erase it. Small changes, massive impact. This is where your social confidence begins to grow quietly. Confidence is not loud. Confidence is not dominating conversations. Confidence is not talking endlessly. Confidence is being comfortable with presence. Being comfortable with silence. Being comfortable with intention. Being comfortable not needing to impress. When you stop trying to fill every moment with words, your words begin to carry more weight. And when your words carry weight, people listen differently. They lean in. They remember. They respect. This is the beginning of social power, and this is only the beginning of what most people never learn about communication. Subscribe to this channel to get more mind-shifting content like this and continue learning how to communicate smarter, protect your energy, and build real influence in your life. People often think attraction begins with appearance, status, or charm, but attraction begins much earlier than that. It begins in the first few seconds of emotional interaction. Before someone decides whether they like you, trust you, respect you, or feel curious about you, their brain asks one silent question. How does this person make me feel? Not what you look like. Not what you own. Not what you say about yourself. How you make them feel. And the fastest way to make someone feel nothing is to speak like everyone else. When you start conversations with automatic questions, the brain receives an automatic signal. This interaction will be ordinary. And once the brain predicts an ordinary interaction, it reduces emotional investment. This is why many conversations never go anywhere. Not because the people involved lack depth, but because the conversation never gave them permission to access it. Depth is not something you force. Depth is something you invite. And invitations begin with emotional cues. Most people think they need better conversation skills. What they actually need is better conversation awareness. Awareness of how words feel. Awareness of how silence feels. Awareness of how energy moves between two people. Communication is not just language. It is emotional choreography. Two nervous systems responding to each other in real time. When you speak automatically, you disconnect from this dance. When you speak intentionally, you let it. This is why emotionally intelligent communicators feel calming to talk to. You feel safe around them, relaxed around them, interested around them, because they remove effort from interaction. They do not make you work to keep a conversation alive. They guide the emotional flow without forcing it. Guidance is attractive. Pressure is exhausting. The moment a conversation feels like work, people start searching for an exit. The moment it feels easy, they start searching for reasons to stay. Ease is social currency, and ease is created by removing unnecessary questions and replacing them with shared reality. Instead of asking, "How was your day?" try, "Today felt unusually fast." Instead of asking, "What are you doing?" try, "You look focused." Instead of asking, "Are you busy?" try, "This seems like a busy moment." These statements do something powerful. They create shared experience. Shared experience builds connection faster than interrogation ever could. Because questions can feel like demands, but observations feel like companionship. You are not asking for effort. You are offering presence. And presence is deeply attractive. This applies everywhere. Friendships, work, dating, family, networking. People gravitate toward those who make interaction feel natural. Think about the people you enjoy talking to the most. They probably do not bombard you with questions. They do not force conversations. They do not create pressure. They create space. And inside that space, conversations grow naturally. Space is the most underrated communication tool. Most people fear it. Confident people use it. Silence allows thoughts to breathe. Silence allows emotions to surface. Silence allows curiosity to build. When you remove silence, you remove depth. Many people speak constantly because they fear awkwardness. But what they call awkwardness is often just unfamiliar silence. And unfamiliar does not mean bad. In fact, unfamiliar often means powerful. Because growth lives outside routine. When you stop rushing to fill silence, something fascinating happens. People start contributing more. They start sharing more. They start revealing more. They start investing more. Because you are no longer competing for conversational space. You are offering it. This is emotional generosity. And emotional generosity creates trust faster than charm ever will. Trust is not built by saying impressive things. Trust is built by creating emotional safety. Safety is the foundation of connection. Connection is the foundation of attraction. Attraction is the foundation of influence. Everything begins with emotional safety. And emotional safety begins when people feel they do not have to perform around you. Automatic questions often trigger performance mode. People give socially acceptable answers. Polished answers, safe answers, but intentional communication invites authenticity. Instead of performing, people start expressing, and expression is where real relationships begin. This is why some conversations feel refreshing. You leave feeling lighter, calmer, more energized, not because the conversation was long, but because it felt real. Real conversations feed the nervous system. Surface conversations drain it. Your goal is not to talk more. Your goal is to create conversations that nourish. When your conversations nourish people, they remember you differently. They feel drawn to you without fully understanding why. This is what quiet charisma looks like. Not loud, not flashy, not dramatic. Just intentional presence combined with emotional awareness. Quiet charisma is powerful because it feels rare. And rare things feel valuable. Value creates respect. Respect creates attraction. Attraction creates opportunity. This is how small communication changes create life changes. People often underestimate how much their words shape their reality. Opportunities come through people. Relationships shape opportunities. Communication shapes relationships. Improve communication and your entire world begins to shift. Slowly, quietly, powerfully. You will notice conversations lasting longer. People opening up faster. Strangers becoming comfortable quickly. Not because you changed who you are, but because you changed how you show up. Showing up intentionally is one of the highest forms of self-respect. It signals that your time matters. Your energy matters. Your presence matters. And when you treat your presence as valuable, others follow your lead. Because humans mirror emotional signals. If you treat your words as routine, others treat your presence as routine. If you treat your words as intentional, others treat your presence as meaningful. This is social mirroring. And once you understand mirroring, communication becomes less confusing. People respond to the emotional tone you set. Set a shallow tone. Receive shallow responses. Set a thoughtful tone. Receive thoughtful responses. Communication is a feedback loop. Change the input, and the output changes automatically. This realization gives you quiet control over your social life. Not control over people. Control over the emotional atmosphere. And atmosphere shapes everything. The difference between awkward and comfortable. Between forgettable and memorable. Between polite and meaningful. All of it begins with the first few words spoken, or the decision to wait before speaking. This is where intentional communication becomes a lifestyle. Not a technique. Not a trick. A mindset. A mindset that values presence over performance. Connection over routine. Meaning over politeness. And the more you practice this mindset, the more natural it becomes. It stops feeling like effort and starts feeling like authenticity. Because intentional communication is not about becoming someone new. It is about removing the automatic behaviors that hide who you already are. The real you exists beneath social autopilot, beneath routine questions, beneath polite scripts, beneath predictable phrases. When you remove those layers, your natural presence becomes visible. And natural presence is magnetic. People trust authenticity instinctively, even if they cannot explain why. Your nervous system recognizes realness in others, and theirs recognizes it in you. This is human connection at its simplest form. Presence meeting presence. No scripts. No autopilot. No emotional distance. Just real interaction. And real interaction changes everything. Subscribe to this channel to continue learning how to build confidence, emotional intelligence, and real social power through intentional communication. There is a moment in every conversation where the emotional direction is decided. Most people never notice it, yet it determines whether the interaction becomes memorable or disappears seconds later. That moment happens before the conversation even begins. It happens in the pause. The small gap between seeing someone and speaking to them. Most people rush through this pause because silence feels uncomfortable. Their brain whispers that they must say something quickly before the moment becomes awkward. So they grab the first socially acceptable sentence available and release it without thinking. How are you? The pause disappears. The opportunity disappears with it. But confident communicators treat the pause differently. They understand that the pause is not empty space. It is emotional space. And emotional space is where intention forms. In that small pause, you have time to observe, to notice, to feel the energy of the moment, to choose words instead of reacting with habits. When you slow down this single moment, your entire communication style begins to transform. You stop reacting. You start responding. And response carries power that reaction never will. Reactions are automatic. Responses are intentional. Reactions belong to autopilot. Responses belong to awareness. This shift may sound small, but its effects reach into every area of your life. Relationships begin to deepen. Conversations begin to last longer. People begin to open up without you forcing them to. Because they sense something different. They sense that you are present. Presence is rare in a world filled with distraction. Everyone is rushing somewhere, thinking about something else, or mentally rehearsing their next sentence. Very few people are fully inside the moment they are living. When you become present, people feel the contrast instantly. It feels calming, grounding, safe. And safety is one of the strongest emotional magnets in human interaction. Most people walk through life unconsciously searching for emotional safety. They want to feel accepted, understood, and relaxed around others. But they rarely find environments that provide it. So when they meet someone who creates that feeling naturally, they remember them, not always consciously, but emotionally. They feel drawn to them without knowing why. This is the quiet power of intentional presence. It does not demand attention. It attracts attention. It does not chase connection. It creates connection. The irony is that many people believe they need to speak more to be interesting. In reality, they need to speak less but with more intention. Talking more does not increase value. Talking intentionally increases value. When every sentence has purpose, people begin to listen differently. They stop waiting for their turn to speak and start absorbing what you say. This is the beginning of conversational respect. Respect is not requested. Respect is generated through emotional signals. Signals like calmness. Signals like patience. Signals like comfort with silence. These signals tell others that you are not trying to impress them. You are not trying to prove anything. You are not trying to force connection. And paradoxically, this makes people want to connect more. Because pressure disappears. Pressure is the invisible enemy of communication. When people feel pressure to respond, perform, or entertain, their nervous system becomes guarded. Guarded people do not open up. Guarded people do not invest emotionally. Remove the pressure, and the guard drops naturally. This is why observational communication works so well. It removes performance. It removes expectation. It removes the need to deliver perfect answers. Instead of asking questions that demand effort, you create statements that invite participation. You seem deep in thought today. This place feels quieter than usual. That meeting drained everyone's energy. These statements act like open doors. People can walk through them easily without feeling pushed. And once someone walks through one open door, they become more willing to walk through another. This is how conversations grow organically. Not by force, but by comfort. Comfort is the soil where connection grows. Without comfort, conversations remain surface level. With comfort, depth appears naturally. Depth is not something you demand from people. Depth is something people offer when they feel safe enough to share it. And safety is built through emotional pacing. Most people speak too fast, respond too quickly, and move conversations forward before emotional comfort has time to form. They rush through interactions like they are trying to reach a destination. But meaningful conversations are not destinations. They are experiences. Experiences require pacing. Think about music. If every song played at maximum speed, none of them would feel emotional. Emotion exists in rhythm, pauses, and variation. Conversation follows the same rules. Rhythm creates engagement. Pauses create anticipation. Variation creates interest. When you speak at one speed and one emotional tone, conversations feel flat. When you allow rhythm and pauses, conversations feel alive. Alive conversations create emotional memory. Emotional memory creates lasting impressions. This is how people remember you long after the interaction ends. They may not remember your exact words, but they remember how the interaction felt. And feeling remembered is one of the strongest social advantages you can have. People trust those who create positive emotional memories. They feel comfortable around them faster. They open up to them sooner. They invite them into opportunities more willingly. Because comfort reduces risk. Every new interaction contains a small amount of emotional risk. Will this person judge me? Will this conversation feel awkward? Will this interaction drain my energy? When you create comfort quickly, you reduce those risks. And when risk decreases, openness increases. Openness is the gateway to every meaningful relationship in life. Friendships, partnerships, business connections, romantic relationships, all of them begin with openness. And openness begins with emotional safety. You are not just learning communication, you are learning emotional architecture. You are learning how to build environments where connection naturally grows. This skill is rare because most people never realize conversations have emotional structure. They think communication is about finding the right words. It is not. It is about creating the right emotional conditions. Words are tools. Emotion is the environment, and the environment determines whether the tools work. This realization changes how you approach every interaction. Instead of worrying about what to say next, you begin focusing on how the interaction feels right now. Is there pressure? Slow down. Is there tension? Soften your tone. Is there silence? Let it exist. Is there comfort? Allow it to grow. You stop trying to control conversations and start guiding emotional flow. Guidance feels natural. Control feels forced. People resist control but welcome guidance. This is the foundation of social influence. Not forcing outcomes, but shaping environments. When you shape emotional environments, people move toward connection naturally. This is why small communication changes led to big life changes. You are not just changing conversations. You are changing how people experience you. And how people experience you determines how they respond to you. Response shapes opportunity. Opportunity shapes life direction. Everything connects back to small moments of communication. Small moments repeated consistently become life patterns. And life patterns become destiny. This is how something as simple as removing one automatic question begins to reshape your social world. Subscribe to this channel to continue learning how to build emotional intelligence, confidence, and powerful communication skills that change how people experience you. Most people never realize that the biggest communication mistake is not saying the wrong thing. It is saying the expected thing. Expected words create expected reactions. Expected reactions create predictable experiences. Predictable experiences create emotional boredom. And emotional boredom quietly destroys connection. No one admits this out loud, but human beings crave emotional stimulation in conversation. Not drama, not chaos, just aliveness. A sense that something real is happening in the interaction. When conversations feel alive, people feel awake. When conversations feel routine, people feel sleepy. This is why some conversations feel energizing while others feel draining even when nothing negative happens. Routine drains energy because the brain stops paying attention. When the brain stops paying attention, the nervous system disengages. And when the nervous system disengages, connection fades. You have probably experienced this without realizing it. You finish a conversation and feel tired even though nothing stressful happened. Nothing bad was said. Everything was polite. Everything was normal. But nothing felt real. Politeness without presence creates emotional emptiness. This is why intentional communication feels refreshing. It wakes the brain up. It signals that this interaction is different from the thousands of automatic exchanges people experience daily. Difference creates curiosity. Curiosity creates attention. Attention creates connection. Connection is the foundation of influence. People listen to those who make them feel awake. This does not mean you must be entertaining or dramatic. It means you must be present enough to break the pattern of autopilot communication. Breaking patterns is powerful because the brain is constantly predicting what will happen next. Predictions help the brain conserve energy. But when a prediction fails, attention spikes. That spike of attention is where influence begins. When you replace automatic questions with intentional observations, you create small prediction breaks. Tiny moments where the brain says, wait, this is different. Those moments are the doorway to memorability. Memorable people are not always the loudest or the funniest. They are the ones who interrupt autopilot. They speak in ways that feel grounded and real. Their words feel connected to the moment instead of disconnected from it. When words match the moment, conversations feel authentic. Authenticity is deeply attractive because it signals emotional safety. It tells the nervous system that this interaction is genuine, not performative. Performance creates distance. Authenticity creates closeness. Most people perform in conversations without realizing it. They follow social scripts learned over years of repetition. Scripts designed to avoid awkwardness and maintain politeness. But scripts also create emotional distance. When you stop relying on scripts, people feel the difference immediately. They sense that you are responding to the moment, not reciting lines from memory. And that difference feels refreshing. Refreshing interactions become memorable interactions. Memorable interactions create emotional anchors in people's minds. When someone thinks about reaching out, collaborating, or spending time with someone, their brain searches for positive emotional memories. If you created one, you appear in their thoughts. This is how communication shapes opportunity. Opportunities rarely appear randomly. They travel through emotional memory. The people who come to mind first often receive the opportunity first. Not because they are the most qualified. Not because they are the most impressive. But because they are the most remembered. Being remembered is social currency. And intentional communication is how you earn it. This realization changes how you approach everyday interactions. Small conversations stop feeling small. Quick exchanges stop feeling insignificant. You begin to see each interaction as a chance to create emotional memory, not by trying hard, not by performing, but by being present and intentional. Presence is the rarest gift you can offer another human being. In a distracted world, full attention feels powerful. When you give someone your attention fully, even briefly, they feel valued, and feeling valued creates warmth. Warmth is the foundation of likability. Likability is the gateway to trust. Trust is the gateway to influence. Everything builds step by step. Most people try to jump directly to influence without building the emotional foundation first. They try to impress, persuade, or entertain before establishing comfort and warmth. But influence without comfort feels manipulative. Influence with comfort feels natural. Comfort is built through emotional pacing and intentional communication. When conversations feel slow enough to breathe, people relax. When people relax, their guard drops. When their guard drops, they become open. Openness allows real connection to form. Real connection cannot be forced. It can only be invited. This is the hidden beauty of intentional communication. It respects emotional timing. It allows conversations to unfold instead of pushing them forward. When conversations unfold naturally, people feel like participants instead of performers. Participation feels good. Performance feels tiring. People gravitate toward environments where they can simply be themselves. When you create those environments through your communication style, people gravitate toward you, not because you demanded attention, but because you removed pressure. Removing pressure is one of the most underrated social skills. Pressure makes people self-conscious. Self-conscious people become guarded. Guarded people stay distant. Distance prevents connection. When pressure disappears, people become comfortable. Comfortable people become expressive. Expressive people become connected. Connection leads to stronger relationships, deeper trust, and more meaningful interactions across every area of life. This is why communication is not a small skill. It is a life skill. Every opportunity, relationship, and collaboration passes through the gateway of communication. Improving communication improves the quality of everything that passes through that gateway. You are not just learning how to talk differently. You are learning how to shape experiences. Experiences determine memories. Memories determine decisions. Decisions determine life direction. It all begins with how people experience you in small everyday moments. And those moments begin with the first words you choose to speak. Choose them intentionally. Subscribe to this channel to continue learning how to master communication, emotional intelligence, and quiet confidence so you can build stronger connections and greater influence in every area of your life. There is another reason automatic questions weaken your presence, and most people never notice it. They place you in a reactive position. When you ask routine questions, you hand the emotional steering wheel to the other person. You wait for them to decide the direction, the tone, and the depth of the interaction. You become a passenger in your own conversation. Passengers rarely create memorable journeys. Leaders do. Leading a conversation does not mean dominating it. It means setting the emotional tone early so the interaction has direction. Humans relax when direction exists. Uncertainty creates tension. Direction creates comfort. Think about entering a room where nobody knows what to say. The air feels heavy. People glance at their phones. Small talk floats around but never lands. Everyone is waiting for someone else to guide the moment. Then one person says something simple but grounded in reality. Suddenly the room breathes again. The tension breaks. Conversations begin to flow. That person did not speak longer. They spoke with direction. Direction reduces social friction, and reducing friction makes you easier to talk to. Ease is incredibly attractive. People gravitate toward those who make life feel smoother. Not louder, not flashier, just smoother. When your communication removes friction, people associate you with relief. And humans naturally move toward what feels relieving. Relief feels safe. Safety builds trust. Trust builds connection. You do not need perfect words to create this effect. You need intentional energy behind simple words. Energy is what people feel beneath language. You can say a basic sentence with presence and create impact, or say impressive sentences without presence and create nothing. Presence amplifies words. Absence empties them. When your mind is fully inside the interaction, your tone changes. Your pace changes. Your eye contact changes. Your body language changes. Even your pauses feel different. People feel this shift instinctively. Humans are wired to detect attention. When someone is truly present, their nervous system signals safety. This is why intentional communication is more about awareness than vocabulary. You are not searching for clever lines. You are learning to bring full awareness into small moments. Awareness changes how you listen. And listening is half of communication. Most people listen to reply. Intentional communicators listen to understand. This difference changes everything. When you listen to reply, you prepare your next sentence while the other person is still speaking. Your attention splits. Your presence weakens. People sense the distance even if they cannot explain it. When you listen to understand, your attention stays. Your curiosity grows. Your responses become more relevant and natural. Relevance makes conversations feel effortless. Effortless conversations create comfort. Comfort invites depth. Depth is where real connection begins. Real connection is rare because deep listening is rare. In a world where everyone wants to be heard, the person who truly listens becomes magnetic. Listening is not passive. It is an active emotional signal. It tells the other person that their words matter and their experience is valued. Feeling valued is one of the strongest emotional rewards a conversation can provide. People remember who made them feel valued. They may forget the details of the conversation, but they remember the feeling of being heard. Being heard is deeply human. When you provide that experience consistently, people trust you faster and open up more willingly. Trust grows through repeated emotional experiences. Small moments of attention accumulate into strong relationships over time. This is why communication habits matter so much. Small habits repeated daily shape how people experience you long term. If your default habit is autopilot, your presence feels routine. If your default habit is awareness, Your presence feels intentional. Intentional presence becomes part of your identity in the minds of others. They begin to expect meaningful interactions when they speak with you. Expectation shapes perception. Perception shapes reputation. Your communication style quietly builds your reputation every day, not through big speeches or dramatic conversations, but through tiny everyday interactions repeated consistently. Reputation is built in whispers, not announcements. The way you greet people, the way you pause before speaking, the way you listen, the way you respond. These small moments accumulate into a clear emotional pattern. Over time, people begin describing you in similar ways. Calm, easy to talk to, grounded, comfortable to be around. These descriptions are not accidents. They are the natural result of intentional communication habits. And once those habits become automatic, you no longer need to think about them. Intentional communication becomes your natural way of interacting with the world. At that point, conversations stop feeling like effort and start feeling like flow. Flow is the state where interactions feel smooth, natural, and energizing. In flow, you are not searching for words. You are responding to the moment with clarity and ease. Flow cannot exist in autopilot mode. It requires awareness. Awareness slows you down just enough to notice the emotional rhythm of interaction. When you notice the rhythm, you can move with it instead of against it. Moving with the rhythm makes conversations feel harmonious. Harmony creates emotional comfort. Emotional comfort builds lasting connection. Connection is not built in one conversation. It is built across many small interactions where comfort is consistently present. Consistency builds reliability. Reliability builds trust. Trust builds strong relationships. Strong relationships create opportunities, support, and emotional stability throughout life. This is why communication is not just a social skill. It is a life skill that touches everything. Your friendships, your career, your romantic relationships, your personal growth. All of them are shaped by how people experience you during interaction. When people consistently feel calm, comfortable, and valued around you, they choose to keep you in their lives. Choice creates closeness. Closeness creates belonging. Belonging is one of the deepest human needs. When your communication style helps others feel belonging, they naturally offer it back to you. This is how intentional communication creates a positive cycle. The more comfort you create, the more connection you receive. The more connection you receive, the more opportunities and support enter your life. Small words, big ripple effects. And it all began with questioning one simple habit. Subscribe to this channel to keep learning how to strengthen your presence, emotional intelligence, and communication so you can build deeper connections and stronger relationships everywhere you go.